Is there anybody here that actually knows how to do video editing? All right. As always, I'm your host, Nick Freitas, member of the Virginia House of Delegates, but other than that, a reasonably good guy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the long game now. This is where we're at. And what do I mean by that? I mean that there is no single election cycle that is going to fix this. So there's no scenario. Let's say you're someone that believes that as long as Trump or Ron DeSantis get elected and as long as they get a Republican Senate or House, we're going to right the ship. That's what's going to be necessary to do it, and we'll be able to do it in a relatively short period of time. I don't think anyone at this table actually believes that. I could be wrong. We'll see throughout the conversation. But I don't think anyone actually believes that. However, that doesn't mean that the country isn't worth fighting for and preserving, at least the one that we grew up in and the one I think we all still cherish. But the question is, how do we actually do that? You have a high degree of social cohesion. I'll sum all this up. It's when a vast majority of the population has a degree of faith and trust in the various political, economic, social institutions, as well as culturally guiding institutions. So this also includes things like the arts and entertainment. Now, we haven't talked a ton about the arts and entertainment on this show, but I think we'll actually probably start including it more as it becomes appropriate, because the arts and entertainment are culturally shaping institutions, right? They tell the stories that inform us about ourselves. And I don't just mean this when they tell the documentaries or things like that. I mean that when they tell the stories that are meant to help shape culture, that has an impact on the way that we view ourselves, view our institutions, view our history, view our relations, and by necessity come up with the strategies that we're going to use to alter the future. And I would say right now that we've reached a point that the social incohesion that you see between urban and rural in the United States is just, I would say the arts and entertainment almost has complete social cohesion, but it's all on the left.
Yeah.
And that, again, if we want to understand the operational environment, we need to understand that the culturally shaping institutions within the arts and entertainment are almost exclusively dominated by the left. There's very few areas where it's not.
A shorter way to summarize that is the left has monopolized the art and entertainment industries. And if you need proof of it, I mean, just literally watch anything produced by Hollywood today, right? Or go to a university system. I mean, because that's also, especially in the humanities departments outside of like the hard sciences, anything that's producing art or entertainment within the university system, incredibly left wing. Anybody that consumes any sort of mass media knows that the left, I'm sorry, but like if you need somebody to explain to you, make the argument, no pun intended, you know, how or to what extent the left controls art and entertainment in America, you're completely blind at this point. Like, it has been totally monopolized. And that's another type of divide. So like you were bringing up earlier, urban versus rural divides, but there are other types of divides. That's a geographic divide. Within arts and entertainment, there's also a divide. For example, people are watching this podcast right now rather than watching something from Disney, or watching something from any of the mainstream media outlets, or reading the New York Times, God forbid. So like that's an example of people self-sorting ideologically in terms of what type of media they consume, how they spend their recreational time, what type of art or entertainment they like to enjoy. Somebody on the left and somebody on the right, there's almost no overlap there anymore. And there used to be for a long time a significant amount of overlap because the art and entertainment industry was not as ideologically divided as it is today, and especially ideologically so slanted in one side's favor.
I think that's an interesting point because like I like watching old shows. So I remember being younger watching reruns of Andy Griffith and watching reruns of Gilligan's Island and stuff like that. And what was interesting is Gilligan's Island was actually a little bit more left wing.
Really?
Yeah, it was. When you looked at the characters of like the Howells, like the rich people on the island and whatnot, and they would make comments about like I think it was Medicaid and Medicare when these ideas were actually first going through the process. Yeah, they were made out to be like the quintessential evil rich Republicans that didn't want medical care for, poor people, right?
When I watched that show as a kid, I would not have caught up on.
Oh no, of course you wanted to, but that's part of the genius of some of these ideas, kind of like flowing through in a way that makes sense based off of the way the character development has gone. Now let's fast forward to a show that when I watched the first season of this show, I thought it was brilliant. Right? Not every aspect of it, but overall, I was really impressed with it. Ted Lasso.
Yep.
Season 1 of Ted Lasso, I was like, wow, like what a great character. What a great, there was so many things in there that I feel like anybody along any side of the political spectrum could have watched that show and found things that they liked, that they thought was genuinely funny. And for those of you that don't know, Ted Lasso is a show about an American football coach going over to be a football coach in the UK, so a soccer coach, right? And he was brought in specifically to tank the team because the owner of the team at the time wanted to sell it and be done with it and kind of like get back at her ex. But as time goes on, and like his attitude, which is just overwhelmingly positive, it's kind of like this really folksy wisdom that he says, and it's like you just can't help but like this guy and be kind of like won over by his positive way of thinking. And I remember watching season 1 going, you know what? Again, there's stuff you could point to like, I don't like that. Overall, really well done. Season 2, all of a sudden it was like, okay, wait a second. They're starting to bring themes in here that are totally unnecessary. Like they don't even fit. Like the point they're trying to get across doesn't fit. You can tell they're starting to cram ideology in there. They're trying to force it into situations that it shouldn't be.
I've watched a few different shows on Apple TV, and they are very strategic in not throwing any woke stuff in the first season, getting you hooked, and then bringing it in the second, third, and it gets a little bit worse as the show goes on.
Well, and it just got blatant to the point where I remember just saying, okay, I'm done. Like the moment they started talking about trees are socialists, like, oh, give me a freaking break. Like this is just stupid. And then so I stopped at season 2. I was like, I'm done. I don't need this. Like you guys had a great show that was really onto something that actually provided something of value, because I could watch Ted Lasso and somebody that doesn't agree with me on politics could watch Ted Lasso, and we could both find things in it. We're like, oh, you know what? That's great. And that's a good point. And that's funny. And that's, that's valuable. And then the second point was on arts and entertainment and in sports and things like that. And how, again, one of the things that arts and entertainment, and now this is not to say that the power that comes through arts and entertainment cannot be used to influence good causes. Like I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that everything just be, 10,000 foot entertainment and there can be no in-depth conversations about things. I think arts and entertainment can be used in order to challenge certain presuppositions or ideas, right? And that's not in and of itself a bad thing. But I would say that right now it's certainly been taken over. It's dominated now by a particular ideology, right? Because we're mirroring the categories before on the social incohesion. Arts and entertainment. What should we do individually within the realm of arts and entertainment? And I think there's two perspectives here. One is from the perspective of the consumer, and one is from the perspective of the producer. Now, we talked a little bit about this before when it came to like watching Ted Lasso. First season, I thought, wow, this is great. I feel like people from diverse backgrounds can watch this, get something out of it, and actually, lo and behold, have something to talk about with people that you might otherwise disagree with in a positive way. Well, clearly, we're seeing how that's going away. So I would say from a consumer standpoint, we need to be careful about the media that we consume, the entertainment that we consume, the music that we listen to, the messages that are within. I remember listening to one theologian talking about, three levels of philosophy. He goes, level 1 is when you're talking about kind of like the fundamentals of truth and laws of logic. He goes, level 3 is more of like the prescription, or what he called, sitting around just talking to people. And level 2 was the arts and entertainment. Like there is always a worldview that's basically being prescribed within the movies and the music that you watch and you listen to. So one, on the consumer side, is be careful of that. 2, and this comes on the production side. I talk to so many students who, will ask me like, Nick, how do I get involved in politics, or how do I get involved in running for office? And I always say, okay, look, there's a number of ways you can do that, and if you really feel led to do it, that's great, because we do need people that believe in liberty and want to preserve these things. However, right, is there anybody here interested in the theater? Is there anyone here that can sing? Is there anyone here that can paint? Because what we desperately need within our side is people that can help tell the story of what we're talking about, not just make good esoteric or philosophical arguments. telling the stories is so drastically important. And we want creative people that are able to do that in an honest way. Like there was a whole debate going on with respect to, what sort of things should we be teaching in our schools and anti-American education versus pro-American. And the debate, and once again, the debate centers around how are we going to do it within the realm of the government. And my argument is let's get outside of that. Let's actually have a marketplace of ideas with respect to education. And one of the ways that you compete within that marketplace of ideas is not dictating what you want through legislation. It's offering up something within the marketplace. And then when it works, when it provides value, when people watch that movie, when they listen to that music, when they see that painting, and it does something that actually provides value to them, they like it and they want more of it. And so this is one of the biggest areas that I would encourage people. Don't just look at the political and the economic, although that's obviously important. Also look at the realm of the arts and entertainment, because one, I think God created us to be creative. And then two, there's something that genuinely, like, we don't just need to feed the belly or the mind. You also need to feed, the whatever you want to call it, the soul, the spirit, the heart. There's that element within us that yearns for the things that are beautiful and true and noble. And having people that are able to articulate that through the arts and entertainment is absolutely critical. So I think that's another way that we actually prepare going forward is competing within those spheres that are culturally shaping.
I think as liberty-minded people in this area, we also need to master the art of subtlety.
Oh my gosh. Elaborate on that, Hamilton.
Well, I think oftentimes as conservatives, we think, oh, we're going to go, participate in a conversation on social media, or we're going to become a content creator, or we're going to be a filmmaker, or we're going to do this, that, and the other. And our goal in operating within that industry or in that activity is to push our conservative values.
Yeah.
And that might be a good thing. It could be a good endeavor, but I think oftentimes we forget that our first priority is to serve the customer with what they want from us. And so if we are going to be a filmmaker or a content creator, our first initiative must be to meet the interest and the desires of the customer in that relationship. But, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day who does a lot of content creation, and, he was talking about within the Batman movies, I can't remember exactly which movie it was, but just the subtle innuendos towards liberal and leftist ideology that an uneducated person or an uninformed person would not think much of in that moment. But if you stack every experience that they've had with these subtle pushes towards leftism, you put all of those together, and then they hear someone being very overtly, pro-abortion or whatever it might be. All of those experiences add up to that experience helping solidify where they come down on or what they believe. And I think that, we've had conversations about the content that we'll be creating in the future, different YouTube channels and things of that nature. And I think it's surprising to a lot of people that, what we want to do content-wise, whether it be history or homesteading or whatever it might be, is not all going to be specifically political, overtly political, because we want to be just great creators of content for people to enjoy. And we want to serve people potentially in the homesteading community and history community, whatever it might be. And like Christian, and you both watch tons of history channels on YouTube, and y'all get really frustrated when a great channel, a great, someone who's a great historian will make overtly leftist claims about what happened in history.
Yeah.
And why don't we have a conservative who is very, very good at video editing, content creation on YouTube, talking about history, that can do the same, but in actually a truthful way?
Yeah, no, I think that's critical. So that's all the time within this industry of video editing. You come to me and you say, I've got this degree and I've got this degree and I've got this certificate. I'm going to say, great, here's a video I need you to edit. I want X, Y, and Z. If the person that can do it doesn't have the same shiny diplomas on the wall as you, I don't care. I need the person that can do the thing.
I talk to video editors all the time, and the ones that went to college that we potentially are looking to work with, and they have a degree in media production or video editing, they actually come with more problems in actually turning out what we need to turn out at the pace we need to turn out than those who may have minimal experience in video editing, but we can train up to be and produce what we need them to produce. But please,
arts and entertainment, both from the perspective of what you consume as well as what you produce. It is amazing now through things like YouTube, but we've also got to remember YouTube's not friendly to us, right? So what are the other mechanisms that there's a reason why we don't just stream on YouTube. There's a reason why we also stream on Rumble. We are looking for other platforms that we will use the platforms that we can to be able to get to a broader audience, but we're also going to invest in those platforms that we think are going to be far more resilient should YouTube ever decide that speaking obvious truths should get you banned.